My dear friends, what a nice opportunity to see so many faces that I love, that I recognize from all the meetings we have had, Sarvnaz and many others that I am so happy to see every time I come. And to be here in this country, which has been at the avant-garde of the women's struggle and the defense of equality and women's rights in the world. And so it's special to be here because I think that we are really living in the world a very special moment. And I would even dare to say that perhaps we are witnessing a revolution in the way women live among the community of human beings. And I say this because, you see, when there is a revolution, we always have the impression that we do 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And when I see what's happening, for example, the Me Too movement, which is this 2 step forward, and then the leadership in the world of alpha male leaders with this misogynistic tinge that makes us wonder and take consciousness that we have to still be fighting for equality amongst women and men. This is the world we're facing. And truly, if we want to be doing something significant in this world, I think that our best contribution is to support a regime change in what has become the epitome of a misogynistic regime, and this is the regime of the mullahs. So this is also why we're here. We're celebrating what we are as women, but also as we're celebrating what we can be as Iranian women when this regime change comes along. And the good news is that we think that we are closer than ever to regime change. It has also the downside that we know that every time we are gaining some ground, we have to face the backlash of this regime trying to stop the MEK, trying to tarnish the image of the only prevailing organized alternative to this regime. Why do I say this? Because I think there was a turning point in November last year when we saw the Iranian society becoming like a powder keg. And this because, remember when the regime decided to triple the price of the fuel, and it sparkled a protest among the chief supporters, the traditional supporters of the regime. We're talking about the small farmers, we're talking about the unemployed people, we're talking about the dwellers in the shanty towns in Tehran, protesting in a very violent way, torching and destroying everything that could symbolize the regime. And they were asking for regime change. They were not asking for putting the price at a lower level. They were asking to topple and overthrow the mullahs' regime. The response of the regime was a bloodshed. In a couple of days, the Revolutionary Guards killed 1,500 people. Poor people, unarmed people, hungry people, asking for justice. In January, suddenly, we saw another uprising, a different one, but complementary to the one we saw in November. It was with the downing of the Ukrainian airliner. And the protest began with university students, young people, professionals, intellectuals, small businesses, the middle class. It was not now the poor people, it was the impoverished middle class that was turning up to take the streets and protest. And they were not asking for the truth about the plane because everybody knew what was happening. No, they were asking again for a regime change. And they were very clear in saying, we want democracy. It was not saying, oh, we want to go back to the era of the Shah. No, it's not about coming back. It's about moving forward to a true democracy. And then came elections. And then came elections, and this was last week, Friday. And in spite of all the efforts the regime did in trying to push people, even menacing the crowds and the population, in order to have a good turnout in casting votes, when you cross the figures between what was observed in the places and the figures that the own official figures that the regime produced, it's possible to say and to conclude that 90% of eligible voters boycotted the elections. That is the truth. And what is impressive is that Miriam Rajavi had called for that boycott. She was the one calling the population to abstain from going and cast votes as a protest in order to honor the 1,500 Iranians that were killed, murdered in the streets some months before. In order also to make visible the sham, the farce of an election where people couldn't even become candidates if they wanted. It was only the ultra-conservatives that the regime allowed to enter into the elections. Miriam Rajavi concluded, and I'm with her in this, that really elections in Iran, well, we saw elections, true elections, real elections, in November and in January with the uprisings. Those were the real votes, not the sham election that was on Friday. What are our conclusions? First, that we know that with trying to rig the results, as they have done, the regime is producing its own death. It's not possible for them to continue to lie inside Iran and internationally. Their masquerade, their disguise, is into a fall. What is it for us here in the Western world, here where we have freedom, where we can speak? First, we have to ask our leaders to not continue shaking the hands, the bloody hands of the leaders of Iran who are murdering their own people. We have to ask them to respect the resistance and the call for liberty and for democracy that we're hearing here from Iran, to respect the lives of so many people that were manipulated even during the elections. Can you believe that we're all talking about the coronavirus, right? Well, in Iran, the regime tried to silence the reality of the spread of the virus in order to have people voting. Isn't that criminal? How can we continue to pretend we're blind to what is happening? And today, we understand that the MEK and Miriam Rajavi, its leader, are what the mullahs fear the most. And that's why we have to be in full solidarity to all these women that are here today and in other parts of the world with the MEK, battling, struggling, trying to have the reality of what's happening in Iran known by others, because they are the true resistance. They are the ones conveying the truth, the information. They are the ones that have learned to, as we know, that are willing to pay the price for living their own truth, for liberating their own people. We have to be with them. And this is the moment where we can honor by our presence and with our hearts all these women that have learned to take leadership. This generation of women that come with Miriam Rajavi and that have shown the world that Iran are not the mullahs, that Iran are men and women together, and women in role of leadership, with the incredible outcome of having been able, after all these years, to prevail against the crime, even the crimes here in our soil, in Europe. A year ago, you remember there was an attempt to kill all of us, all the ones who were present in the reunion of the MEK in Paris in June 2 years ago. Even with all the things they have done, the crimes, the terrorism, the MEK is still alive. And for the women of Iran, this is the best guarantee that one day their rights will prevail. And because I have this profound admiration for Miriam Rajavi and her plight, and for all of you, women and men of this organization, which I truly believe are the most awesome freedom fighters that we see today, I am very, very honored to introduce Miriam's, my friend that I admire, Miriam's message to us all today.